This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
Introduction. This is an essay on the main branches of philosophy. The word philosophy is derived from the Greek word philo, meaning the love of or the craving for wisdom. Many authors have consequently tried to define this ambiguous term in variant ways, and as such, philosophy has different meanings in literature. However, as William observed, philosophy is the systematic flow of ideas about human nature, survival, and coexistence with nature. It is the epitome of thinking, and as it was described by the London Times, the great virtue of philosophy is that it teaches not what to think, but how to think. It develops a wide skill of analysis, questioning orthodoxies, and clear expressions. An inquiry into philosophy is challenging and requires a high degree of discipline, and only the courageous can succeed. It requires abject humility because it is so easy to fall into errors, and thus, it is good to admit weaknesses and commitment. Research, use of logic, and high reasoning are very significant in a philosophical inquiry because they minimize errors in addressing complex questions. Many professional philosophers are convenient historians, and different branches of philosophy overlap equally. Hence, there is no isolated branch of philosophy. A philosophical inquiry impacts one on how to live one's life. It helps human beings understand why some things go wrong and, consequently, how to make them go right. It also prepares one to live in imminent uncertainties and gives a clear understanding of things not normally understood by humans. A philosophical inquiry might not yield the expected results, and thus, a philosopher should always be ready to live with the results. However, the knowledge derived from the inquiry nullifies the uncertainties of the inquiry. Philosophy is characterized by a goal, and a method of conceptual analysis is conveniently adopted. Religions such as Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity offer guidance on philosophy. Depending on the questions asked, philosophy can be classified into various fields. This essay will henceforth describe the four main branches of philosophy in the world of science. Main branches of philosophy. Metaphysics. Philosophers struggle to address the fundamental question of the reality of nature. Metaphysics seeks to know what nature entails, how it looks, and how it is ordered. It tries to establish what truth is, if people have free wills, how brains generate minds, if God exists, and what a person is. It also tries to define a spirit, matter, existence, in what manner geometric figures exist and what they are made of, how ideas exist, and what is time and space. Epistemology. Philosophers struggle to address the fundamental question of the true nature, limits, and scope of knowledge and beliefs. It seeks to know if we know anything, what are knowledge and the measure of truth in a statement. It also struggles to establish our claims that we know something and how we know that we know it. Axiology. Philosophers, in this case, struggle with the question of value. It looks into the nature and criteria of value as it seeks to know if the value is the satisfaction of desire, a preference, human interest, or just a pleasure. It also seeks to know how values are related. Axiology is further classified into ethics, politics, and aesthetics. Logic. This is the line of argument or the reasoning employed in answering questions and studying the structure and nature of arguments that allow maximum extraction and preservation of knowledge. This ensures that there are no contradictions, and hence, a sober conclusion is arrived at. Also, almost all errors are evaded where caution, reasoning, and logic are adopted. All conclusions will depend on the reasoning and argument brought forward. It seeks to know whether the reasoning given is good or bad and what is contained in good or bad reasoning. Aristotle was the father of logic. Ethics. Philosophers give an insight into human values, decision-making procedures, how humans should act, and moral problems. They seek answers on the rightness and wrongness of an act, the good and the bad things, the measure of goodness, and the level of praise or blame in action. They also seek to address whether morality is objective or subjective, what makes an act right, and how we should treat others. Politics. Philosophers struggle to address the fundamental question of how human beings operate in society. It is a branch of ethics, and its goal is to create a conducive environment for reasoning. It dictates that individuals be enabled to function fully about nature. Aesthetics. It deals with art, beauty, judgment, and feelings. Therefore, the philosophy of art identifies with emotion, taste, and sense. It seeks to know if there is a difference between art and reality, if there is objective value in artwork, if there are any standards of taste, if art represents ideal objects or sensible objects, and if art is a representational or intellectual activity. Conclusion. It is quite clear that philosophy as a subject and philosophical inquiry is a complex and challenging task, yet it is beneficial to human beings. The knowledge acquired from these inquiries is most significant in day-to-day living and should be embraced. The fact that philosophy is intertwined with research and history shows that it is not a subject in isolation but instead a foundation of all subjects. Its branches also overlap. In muscling to answer the complex questions in the philosophical inquiry, caution, accuracy, discipline, and patience are a prerequisite. Did you like this Philosophy's Main Branches sample? To get more works like this one, make sure to check out the database of academic paper examples at ivypanda.com. You will find thousands of samples for all your study needs.